I think I have a fear of manifestation. And what I mean by that is, like this week, I got myself into an awesome space. I was like, my vortex is there, it's a reality, I get that, it's awesome, it's great. It's like I'm starting to fly, and then I realize I'm flying, and I crash. So it's almost like I feel it's going to happen, it's going to happen, it's going to happen, it's going to happen, and then I'm like, whoa.
Well, have you had people criticizing your manifestations? Is that a pattern in your experience? Have you just been a really screwy creator and you create all kinds of stuff and other people look at it and they say, what's up with that?
No.
No. Well, we thought we'd exaggerate that a little bit in order to try to get up to speed with your fear.
Yeah.
So why would you be afraid of manifestation? And we are asking that. We're not being as sarcastic as we sound. Why would you be afraid? What is it about manifestation that you would fear? Too much in your hangar?
Maybe. I feel like it's just gonna like fall out of the sky and be that my life will change so drastically.
But here's the good news. Your life cannot change more rapidly than you are able to allow it. And so you're onto something important here, because you are deliberately measuring it. In other words, sometimes you identify what you want, and as it begins to come, it brings other things with it. And that is a byproduct of feeling a shortage in some area, and you're trying to fill that shortage. So you're, in a sense, trying to fill your own grid in a little before you've really cleaned up your vibration relative to everything. So you worry that you'll get some of what you want and some of what you don't want, and that it will be overwhelming when it comes. But we want you to know, and that's the reason that we present this vortex. Sometimes it's annoying to people, but it's the best way that we can explain to you that there is a vibrational version of what you want, and it's vivid to those like us who can see into the vibrational arena. And we want you to know that what you want, that it's all there, and that if everything that is there came to you all in one split second, you're right, it would be overwhelming, but it won't happen that way, because first of all, you can't perceive all of it at once. It would be a little bit like, we're going to get to the specifics of what you're talking about. We want to give you some basis to understand this. Would be, for example, through sifting through life, you put a lot of things in your vortex. Let's say that it's around the subject of economics, that it's around the subject of business, it's around the subject of prosperity. So you've put dollars there. You've put a lot of dollars that you have free access to, easy access to, not encumbered dollars, not dollars that other people have a say about, but dollars that are freely yours to spend. You've put really satisfying way for those dollars to flow to you there. Not something where it just falls out of the sky, but something that is ongoing, something that keeps you stimulated and feeling good and excited. You put those there. You put a lot of nice people there with whom you will co-create. People who are brilliant like you are, who you can bounce off of and take thoughts to new places. You put all kinds of details of things that you like cars and buildings and people and relationships. You put all of that there. It's all there. It is all vibrationally spun into a frequency that is worthy of manifestation. In other words, it's there, it's like ripe fruit, it's ready for the plucking. The question isn't, is it ready, or have you done well in creating it? It's ready, and you have done well in creating it. The question is, how much of it do you want right now? And the answer to that is, how much are you vibrationally ready for right now? So let's say you're focused some way. Maybe you're here having a good conversation with us, and then you're off into your day and you're just feeling really good. You're tuned in, tapped in, turned on. You're high on life and feeling really good, and therefore up to speed with what's in that vortex. Well, everything that's in there isn't going to descend on you in this moment. Only what is appropriate given where you are and what you're asking for in this moment. In other words, you're not just going to all of a sudden lose your mind and therefore lose your ability to focus. You're not going to have 100 pizzas delivered it through your sunroof while you're driving down the freeway. It's not going to happen, because you see what we're getting at? It's going to come at the perfect pace and at the perfect speed, because not only did you put all of those things that we mentioned, and so many more than that we wouldn't have time to if we talked all week and only to you, in your vortex, you also put pacing, you also put feeling good in your body, you also put balanced life, you also put, because every time you were overwhelmed, you asked for a more paced experience. Every time you were underwhelmed or bored, you asked for something that was more stimulating. In other words, through life, can you hear us when we say, you have managed to create a perfect vortex that is perfect and is managed by Source and will deliver itself to you in exactly the right time, in exactly the right way, over and over and over again all day long, until you'll begin moving through life, and it will feel to you as if the universe, Source, God, whatever you want to call that, has you are the undivided attention of that, and things are just being laid out for you in this wonderful dance. What you're describing with your fear is, first of all, not being up to speed with the vibration of your source, not being up to speed with the vibration of your vortex, not even really being aware what your emotions mean. In other words, those fears are irrational based upon what you didn't know before what you now know. It's an old belief that you had not wanna dust off anymore. Leave it off somewhere. It doesn't apply to who you now are, you see. Who you now are is someone who knows that when you feel fear, what does it mean? I've got a disagreement going on. My vortex, the contents of my vortex, the source within me feels differently. Now, what thought did I just think? What was that thought that you just thought that caused the fear? What was it?
Overwhelming.
But what was the thought? It's all going to come at once, or what if it all comes at once? Source isn't thinking that thought. Source knows better. It's not going to all come at once. It's going to come in a perfect pacing. It's going to come and when we say to you, you don't want to eat all the food today that you're going to eat for the rest of your life, if you will let that be the perfect analogy for you, it's just like that. And why does it not come? Because you don't want it to. In other words, do you worry about that? Do you worry? Do you worry when you come to these workshops, that disclaimer that you sign is get longer and longer? And I do acknowledge that all the food that I will ever eat forevermore will not come to me this afternoon. I acknowledge that. You don't have to acknowledge that because it's just logical to you. You know, manifestations don't work that way. The manifestations are measured. Don't you think it's wonderful how manifestations happen?
Yes.
Don't you think it's wonderful how the earth spins in its orbit? Do you think that that is just something that continues to happen accidentally, or is it something that is understood and focused upon? This time-space reality is perfectly tended to. All you got to do is tend to your part. You don't need to worry about it. And in the same way that you don't put on your things to do today list, sunrise, 6:00. You don't worry about heartbeat. There's just so much you don't think about because you understand that it's tended to. Well, you can trust that the content of your vortex and its flow into your grid is tended to. You have one singular thing to focus upon. What are you doing vibrationally in relationship to your vortex? And which means you only have to say, how am I feeling right now? How am I feeling right now? So if you're fearful, you're out of whack. So what to do? What to do? Because you didn't be fearful on purpose. You didn't become fearful on purpose. You just found yourself there from sloppy thinking, from habitual thinking, from beliefs, which are habits of thought. So when you find yourself there, what do? Well, you acknowledge that you're not vibrating at the frequency that the source within you is. And we're just going to give you a piece of something. Write this down or remember it or listen back to it when you hear it, because this is really a key piece expressly for what you're talking about here. When you focus generally, your frequency automatically raises. If you're focused upon something unwanted in a specific way, and you make efforts to become more general about it, your frequency raises and raises and raises and raises. It just goes up, 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 because it was the details of unwanted that were introducing the resistance. Did you hear that? So as you become, for example, I'm really unhappy at work. I don't like the place that I'm sitting, and I don't like the person I'm sitting next to. And I don't like what I'm being paid, and I don't like what they're asking me to do. Or some version of that. We got a little bit of that from each of you. So that's really specific. And if you want to add more specifics to it, I don't like that guy because he does this and this and this. He's lazy about his work. He does only as little as he can get by with. He never comes up with a good idea. Now we're getting more and more negatively specific and feeling more and more uncomfortable because straying further and further from the opinion of source. And I don't like this place that I'm working because it's off in the corner and I don't have any airflow over here, and the place is a dump, and the company ought to be able to spend more money, and so getting more and more specific, and in doing so adding more and more resistance, and in doing so causing a greater crevasse between what's in the vortex and what you want. You see what we're getting at? Really good demonstration. And so now you want to get more general. The more general you are, the less specifics you're introducing. The less you're doing that thing you do that lowers resistance. That's the part that we want you to write down. The more general you are, the less you do that thing you do that adds resistance. And the less resistance you add, then the more you allow the cork to float. The cork is floating on the surface of the water, non-resistant. Hold it under the water. That's what negative beliefs are, negative emotion is. Let go of it, up it goes. So the way you let go of it is by becoming more general. So you say, well, I'm not always going to be here. Most of my life I'm not here in this cubicle. I have much more opportunity to be away from this than this. This is bringing income. Not enough. This is bringing income. I did manage to get hired. In other words, not the best statements in the world, but more general, and certainly better than where you were. And many of the processes, if you've been listening to us for a while, have been pointed toward that. In other words, it's just a way to clean up your vibration by distracting yourself from the things that are bothering you. Now, sometimes people worry that if they're not deliberate and if they're not diligent, then they won't get what they want. But that's because they're forgetting about all of the details that they've put into the vortex and all of the attention and care that's being given to those things that are in the vortex. In other words, you've got to accept this. You've got to trust that this vortex does exist, that there is a version of what you want that is there, that is viable and is pulsing and is being focused upon. And your work must be to find a way to focus in a similar way. So you get general enough that you feel better and better and better and better and better. Now, as you reach that general place where you're no longer offering any resistance, and a lot of people, they just get high and they go right there. We're not really encouraging that for this reason. In other words, you can distract yourself in many ways from the specifics that are holding you down. And you hear people say, oh, whatever. And if they really mean that, if they really mean whatever, if they really mean, I am no longer going to nitpick, I'm no longer going to sweat the small stuff, and it's all small stuff, all that negative stuff is small stuff, I'm no longer going to focus upon that. As you begin to hear yourself saying and really meaning those kinds of things, now you're in a position where you can begin to become more specific in a positive way. I'm so looking forward to an environment that is really a comfortable place to be. I really like working in an environment where I can see outside and go outside often. I love working in an environment where I can pretty much choose what I'm doing and when I'm doing it. Or I really love having work that is so satisfying and fulfilling to me that I sort of lose myself in it. I love looking at the clock and being amazed that so much time has passed and I haven't even been aware that the time has passed. Now, these are really specific statements that we are offering here, but they're specific statements that dovetail perfectly with all of the things that you've been putting into your vortex, you see. So now you've cleaned up your vibration by going general, which means you've released resistance. And when you're no longer doing that thing you're doing by introducing resistance, that is what causes the releasing and the raising of resistance. And now You're on a vibrational par with what's in your vortex, and so now it flows seamlessly into your experience.